What if I told you guys I could completely change how you see Wizard 101 PvP? If I told you that this set of gear was better than this set of gear, would you guys believe me? If I told you that this pet was better than this pet, would you still believe me? As most of you know that have watched me for a while, you know that I am one of the best, I am the best Magus PvPer out there on the YouTube platform. Unless he's severely jaded, this should kill. Please. Anyway, we all know that I'm a pretty experienced PvPer, and I wanted to find out, is Pierce better than damage? I really didn't know coming into it, and I always wanted to know what formulas WIZARD101 used to calculate damage. So I went ahead and I figured it out for myself, and I am going to show you guys what I found out. So let's go right ahead and jump into it. I'll see you guys there. So we're going to start off pretty basic. Ashlyn and I have taken off all of our gear, and we get into a battle, just to simulate what it would be like whenever I hit her with absolutely no gear on, with a spell with a set amount of damage. A Freet should do 780 damage, with no stats included. Which it does. So, we know that the base damage of a Freet is 780 damage. So the 4 stats we have to take a look at today are the initial spell damage, pierce, resist, and damage that you get from your gear. So the first thing that we need to do is create a variable for these, well, variables. So we're going to set W equal to spell damage, X equal to pierce, Y equal to resist, and Z equal to damage given from your gear. So that means if we had our friend Trevor Troll Pants here with an Ifrit, it should do 780 damage, right? Is it because he's evil and has joined forces with Malistaire and Dragonspire to summon a Dragon Titan that will surely destroy the spiral?
No, I think he just might have resist.
Oh, okay. Alright, so obviously I know that 780 does not equal 662. So we gotta figure out how WIZARD101 calculates this. So, he had 15 resist, which just means 15% of something. And when you're looking at percentages, essentially think of it like this. If you're fire and someone has 100% fire resistance, and you hit into them, you're going to deal 0 damage no matter what you do. It will always deal 0 damage. So think of it like this. Out of the percentage that he can have of resist, he has 15%. So that means out of 100, you can deal 85% damage. So if we do 780 times 0.85, we will get 662 damage. So now that we know how to calculate resistance, we'll go ahead and add another variable. Let's go ahead and add damage. So as we see, we have 21 damage. So we're going to go ahead and hit Trevor again and see how much that does. Now let's calculate that. Alright, first things first. So we already know how to calculate resist by simply just doing times 0.85. Now we need to figure out how to calculate damage. So damage works in the case that if you hit somebody with 21 damage, you wouldn't want to times by 21. That wouldn't work correctly. You wouldn't want to times by 0.21 either. What you want to go ahead and do is multiply by 1.21. And we won't go too far in the math. All you need to know is whenever you do your damage, you'll just want to add a decimal place in front of it, and then you can just add 1 to it to get 1.21. So we'll go ahead and multiply this by 1.21. So we'll go ahead and calculate that, and our 802 plus or minus 4. So we've made it to the final part of the equation. We just need to find out how we calculate Pierce. And in this problem, we're going to go ahead and keep the resist at 15%. We'll go ahead and keep the damage at 21% damage, and we'll add 3 armor piercing. So let's see how that works out. Now I'll show you guys how we can calculate that as well. So let's start adding our variables here. So W is our damage, so W equals 780. X, we do not know because that's our Pierce, but we could go ahead and throw the 3 in there. Y is our resist, which we know that to be 15%. And then Z is our gear damage, which is at 21. So we're going to go ahead and for W, we're going to do 780. And then we know times our 0.85 resist. And then we do our times 0.121. So how can we calculate Pierce? So think of it like this. If you have 100% resist and you hit, like I said, you would get 0 for 100%. But when you add Pierce into the equation, say you do 780 damage into 100%, that's going to equal 0 damage. Well, say you also have 100% Pierce, you can go ahead and just subtract 100% of that resist. So now this and this equals 0. So you're just dealing the plain old 780 damage. So for instance, we have 15% resist here. So if we go ahead and subtract some of this resist, we're actually going to be hitting more towards the damage. So if we only have 3 resist and we're dealing more damage, then we can essentially do 0.85 plus 0.03 to get 88. And that is how you calculate Pierce. So if we go ahead and throw this into our equation, and we do 0.03 plus 0.85 times 0.121, or just 0.88 as we can call it. We'll go ahead and throw these numbers into the calculator real quick. And there we get 830 plus or minus 4. So let's go ahead and list off our variables again so that we can try to get something that we can solve in Excel, because we don't want to have to plug and chug this equation each time we need to get an answer. So here's our W, X, Y, and Z. So our total damage, or we'll just call it D for now, equals our spell damage, which we call W, and then we're going to make it times our Pierce, which is X, and then we'll go ahead and times this by 0.01. And we've been over that because what we do when we get Pierce is, like, if we have 15 Pierce, we want to times it by 0.01 so that we can get 0.15. So we times it by that 0.01, and then we're going to want to add it to our overall resist. So we can get resist by doing our 100 minus our resist. So we had 15 resist, which would have been 85, right? And then we go ahead and do 100 minus 85. And here we have to actually add another parentheses so we can times it by 0.01. And then we do that for the same reason we do it to Pierce, and that's to get it in decimal form. So now when you add these, so with what we have, we're just doing our damage times our Pierce plus resist. So It's basically like if this was 780, it would just be 780 times 0.88 to show our resist that's left over. So now we have to add our damage from our gear. And that's pretty easy as well. You can simply just do our damage, or Z, minus Z plus 100. Because remember when we had 1.21 damage, this is the 100 that we're adding. And then we can simply just times that by 0.01 again to get it in decimal form here. And then we'll go ahead and make this a y as well. So this is our equation here. W times x times 0.01 plus 100 minus y times 0.01. So essentially this is our pierce plus resist, and then this is getting our damage. So you can go ahead and throw this part into Excel and it would be able to calculate it. Instead of the variables though, you'll want to give them columns or cells in Excel. And I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do that. Let's head on over to Google Sheets, where we can open up an online Excel document kind of. It's like Google Excel. And then we go ahead and we have our equation here. So essentially what I've done is I've set it B2, which is the damage cell, times our pierce cell times 0.01 to get it in decimal form, plus our resist cell, times our gear damage, times the 0.01 to get it in decimal form, equals our answer. And so we're going to go ahead and hop in here and test out a simple equation. We set the spell damage to 780, and we simply set the resist to 50%, which should do half damage. And sure enough, our calculation's correct. And then I just hop in here and show you that it's correct by doing the math on Excel. So we will go ahead and do another equation with some different wizards just to show you guys that this works no matter what. So let's go ahead and calculate Brock's character Wolf. He has 39% damage, 0 pierce, and Ashlyn's character Chelsea only has 33% resist. So let's go ahead and throw these numbers in here. We're going to get 160 from the ghoul that Wolf will cast. We'll go ahead and put in his 0 pierce, Ashlyn's 33% resist, and then we'll go ahead and put in the 39% damage, and we should get 149 damage dealt. And then we'll let Wolf cast here. He goes ahead and casts his ghoul. The ghoul hits her, and we get 148, but it's 149 plus or minus 4. It's always off by a little bit for some reason. So we're going to go ahead and have Mason hit Diana. Mason is going to cast a 780 damage dealing Efreet. It is going to go ahead and have 5 pierce on there with Diana's 36% resist and his 125 damage from his gear. And that should cast 1210 plus or minus 4. So let's go ahead and see what it does. And he does 1206, which is well within our plus or minus 4. Alright, so now I'm going to show you guys that 3% pierce can be better than 6% damage. So let's go ahead and get that set up and we'll go from there. So I quickly ran down to the bazaar so I could get us some gear. I bought a 3% pierce wand and then a 6% damage hat to represent if we switch the 3% pierce with 6% damage. So with the damage hat, we went ahead and we did 553 damage. We put the pierce wand on and took the damage off, again to represent pierce instead of damage. And we went ahead and hit Chelsea, and we did 546. So am I wrong? So I started plugging in numbers, and I wanted to see what happens when you have higher gear damage. I just had a feeling that that had something to do with which one was better. So I kept going up, and as I did, I noticed that the numbers started getting closer and closer together. Something strange happens at 34 damage and 40 resist. The numbers are exactly the same, and I'll show you the clip here. So I had to go to the bazaar real quick to buy some gear so that my damage was exactly 34, as you see here, and my pierce is 3 pierce. So we go ahead and we head into the battle, where I will go ahead and defeat Chelsea, and it does, as we called, 731 damage, so our 734 plus or minus 1. We then go in and change our damage to 40% damage and no armor piercing. So this Ifrit goes in, and it does 730, which is actually a little bit lower than our 731, but obviously only by 1. If you go up to like 60 damage and then 66, you can see clearly that Pierce starts to take the lead. So if you go to 70 and 76, that's only a 9 damage difference. But that's pretty big for Wiz. Any bit of extra damage you can get. So if you were facing someone with, say, 33% resist, and you wanted to choose over if you should have 76 damage with no pierce or 70 damage with 3 pierce, you're going to get more bang for the buck out of the pierce. So this looks like it can help out if you're facing someone with, a fair amount of resist and you have a decent amount of damage. Now say that their resist goes up. Say you're facing a warlord and they do not have any towers, anything like that. Pierce gets significantly more value than damage. And that even makes it go to lower numbers. So if we go to like 30 and 36, you can see now that since there's more pierce at lower numbers even, the 3 pierce is better than the 6 damage. So if you're facing lots of warlords, you'll see more benefit out of pierce than you will damage. And we can even show this. There's a wand that has 4% pierce and only 4 damage. If we go ahead and add 7 pierce, and then we would take off that 6 damage that you get from the Sky Iron and make that 24% damage, you can see that it's still more valuable to have that 4% damage, 4% pierce wand than it is to have the Sky Iron Hosta. So that's 2 applications that I can prove to you that pierce is definitely better than damage. So we can definitely go on the other side of things and say, if you don't have a high amount of damage, if you're doing like from level 1 to 10 PvP and you don't have a good pet, maybe you want to get that extra damage in there. But if you have at least like 50 damage and you know you're facing opponents that have some more resist, you definitely want to go with Pierce. It's the better bet. The only time that my equation will not be correct is when you put in more Pierce than the individual has. Say that you have 10 Pierce and they have 0 resist, and you have 0 gear damage. Obviously, that should still do 780 damage. The game does not give you any extra damage for having more pierce than they have resist. So, that's where the equation is flawed. But that does not happen that often in PvP. Do I think we should start seeing a lot more pierce pets instead of damage pets? And also, do I think that we should start using the 4 pierce, 4 damage wand instead of the Sky Iron's 10% damage? I really think so. I think that after doing this research, I found that Pierce is a lot better than damage. You can go overboard with Pierce, but a lot of times you really can't, especially at low levels. So I think we should start taking some numbers, writing them down, seeing what works, what doesn't. And I think that we'll be shocked that Pierce is a lot better than damage in a lot of different situations. So if you guys enjoyed this, I hope you go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and you also let me know what else you guys would like to see as far as tips, tricks, hints, and maybe some other PvP stuff that we can help you all out with. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. Peace out.